comment on that from the more conservative-oriented media. Here was a woman who, before she was nominated, was involved with the ACLU and was known nationally as a feminist lawyer.
But Cliff,
now hold on. Now, yeah, it's true there were only 3 votes against her. But my point, Jim, to conclude is one of those votes was Senator Jesse Helms. You know, I wish we had more Senator Helmses and less John McCains.
Well, but Cliff, surely you would agree, though, that McCain is way more likely to nominate conservative judges as the president than is either Senator Clinton or Barack Obama.
I don't understand if McCain, and I'm not a lawyer, as I say, I'm not a legal analyst or expert, but speaking as a layman, I don't understand what McCain's judicial philosophy is.
But
these
are different roles.
Yeah,
voting in the Senate.
If he is sound, if he is sound in his philosophy, and we can trust him in the way you suggest, Jim or Kurt, why is he so off the reservation when it comes to supporting the ratification with some conditions of the International Criminal Court, which could put Americans in foreign jails and strip away our Bill of Rights protections?
Well, you know, I certainly disagree with Senator McCain on some issues, but politics is the art of the possible, and in politics you get realistic choices. We now have realistic choices. We're either going to get Senator McCain, Hillary Clinton, or Barack Obama. Those are the only options.
No, so that's not true.
Let me finish.
True.
It is true. The only realistic options, the only people that will have the wherewithal to be elected president, are one of those 3 people. And so I consider my job as a conservative to look at the choices and say you know, there's no question that Senator McCain on probably 6 important conservative issues is a strong conservative. I don't know a single issue that Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama are conservative on.
I also have problems with some of McCain's views, and I don't know that he'll be perfect in appointing judges. But then again, you know, he might ultimately be more successful than Bush. Bush had the right instincts, but it was very easy to categorize his picks as, you know, right-wing picks. It's going to be much harder to do that for McCain. And again, McCain has more leverage as a former senator. So I think McCain will be fine on judges. And that's what you've got to think about, because that's what lasts for decades. You know, McCain, whether he's a 1-term or a 2-term presidency, the one thing that's going to outlast him and might outlast, you know, all of our lives is the federal courts, especially the Supreme Court. You know, I think that alone is reason enough to, you know, hold your nose if you have to and vote for McCain.
Jim, do you hold out hope for McCain moderating his views on the campaign finance issue, maybe given his run-ins with the FEC this time?
No, I'm not factoring that sort of thought into my calculus. In other words, that he's going to change his views or moderate his views. I mean, there are about 6 conservative issues that he has been consistently good on. He's been consistently pro-life on abortion. He has consistently fought government spending and earmarks. He's consistently supported the war on terror and an aggressive victory plan for Iraq. You know, these are really important.
I don't want to misapprehend my question. It was not a skeptical one. Do you actually think he might change his mind? I'm wondering if he has different views these days on maybe this system.
That'd be a good question to ask him.
Is a bit more creaky than I expected.
Well, I mean, you know, we always hold out hope, don't we? And it is true he's seeing a different side of it than he was in the past. But whether he does or not, you know, who cares?
Well, we have time for one more question. Yes, in the center here.
Al Milliken, Washington Independent Writers. How significant is it to get the substance of what transpired behind the scenes when John McCain almost became a Democrat and then also almost became the running mate of John Kerry? Harry Reid, John Kerry, and John McCain himself all seem to have acknowledged this took place, but I haven't seen the details of what really happened to start and stop these past possibilities. I'm sure the truth will come out eventually, but do you think this is something voters should know about before the general election?
Well, I think versions of the truth will come out eventually, but it's a fun political story that I guess a few of the lefty blogs have been covering, but I haven't seen much else on it.
Well, we know he was upset. I mean, we know Senator McCain was upset because he felt that he was poorly treated in certain respects, very unfairly treated in certain respects. And I'm not trying to dispute that, that there were examples of him being very poorly treated. And I think the proof is in the pudding, and that is he didn't change. He didn't do it. Okay? So people get mad, you know, and people do things that in a calmer state, you know, more rational state, may not even consider. But that's just human nature. So I just consider that to be, you know, a mistake of his youth.
Well, I agree with the thrust of the question.
Only 64.
I mean, I'm not here to, I'm not here to support or oppose any candidate. I'm looking at all of them. I think that story has to come out. The only point I was making in regard to the courts is that I think more attention ought to be devoted in the media to McCain's views about international courts and tribunals, his support for the International Criminal Court, his apparent support for the Law of the Sea Treaty, which sets up an international Law of the Sea Tribunal, more foreign judges who are going to determine what we do as a nation. These are legitimate issues. He's got some potential problems ahead for him. He hasn't released his medical records. I think those ought to come out. We ought to know everything possible.
His wife's tax records.
His wife's tax, yeah. I mean, Judicial Watch has been going after all of these candidates, and I support all their efforts to get everything out on the table about all of these candidates.
You have to distinguish between, again, policy and the role of a judge. I agree with you that we shouldn't, give up sovereignty to these foreign tribunals, but that's a policy decision. What I want judges not to do is give up that sovereignty on their own by relying on international law, which they very conveniently do. And, if McCain or any other president decides to cede that sovereignty, well, then the courts should go along. I mean, unless they can make an argument for why it's unconstitutional. But, again, I just want to make sure we distinguish between the role of a judge, which I think McCain understands, and his policy preferences, which I may not agree with.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for your excellent presentations. Please give them all a hand. Appreciate it. Mr. James Bopp, Cliff Kincaid, and Kurt Levy, and people are, we eventually will do a monograph on this, so that will be available at Judicial Watch, so stay tuned. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.